Is it Gunnlaug or Gunnlaug? Gunnlaug? Gunnlaug. 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 I don't know how to say it.
This episode is brought to you by AudioQuest, makers of the mythical series Analog Interconnects. Click the link in the show notes for more information.
Welcome back everybody. Yes, today we're going to make a video about a pair of curtains, believe it or not. And the reason is this, is that about a month ago I had this room acoustically treated by Vicoustic, and Vicoustic said to me, look, you've got an exposed surface in this window, you've got an exposed surface in the window on this side, you might want to consider covering them with curtains. And they did recommend using heavy curtains, of course they did, but the thing is, I don't like heavy curtains, especially in this apartment, because when you close them, they block all the light. And what I wanted was a curtain that when you closed it, it would still let some light through. Now, I bought a set of IKEA Gunnlaug. Yes, many people know I'm a fan of IKEA, mainly for the value for money, and also because I'm broke right now and I can't afford to spend €1,000 on a pair of heavy curtains, or a pair of curtains that are heavy that also let light through. So I went with the IKEA, that's the German in me, the IKEA Gunnlaug, and they cost €50 a pair. So I've got two here, €100 all up, and I really like them because they're light, and when I close them, they still let some of the sunlight through, which is what I want from this side of the room, because the sunlight does come through from about 11 AM to 3 PM, and I want some of that, but I want to sort of tame it a little bit. IKEA also make the Gunnlaug in grey. I'm not really a fan of that, but you might like that. But the other reason I bought the IKEA Gunnlaug is because IKEA promise that they have sound absorptive properties. And I've got their description on my tablet here, and I'll read what it says on the IKEA website. It says, Gunnlaug sound absorbing curtains has many functions. It is stylish, filters out light and softens sound caused by everyday activities like the clattering of dishes, the clang of cutlery, or the screeching of chairs being moved around. Okay, fair enough. And you know, I actually read this about a year ago and bought myself a set of these Gunnlaug for my apartment in Berlin, but I haven't really messed around with them or played around with them or tested them as I have this week here, because I only had these adjusted a couple of days ago. So I picked them up from the, what do you call it, a seamstress, a tailor, somebody who's got a big sewing machine who just shortens the length of curtains, because these came as a 3-meter length and I only need 2.5 meters. Weirdly, in the UK you can buy 2.5-meter versions of this IKEA Gunnlaug off the shelf, but here in Portugal it's only 3 meters, and I think in Germany it's only 3 meters. So I've had these shortened. So yeah, they arrived yesterday, I hung them up, and I spent all day listening with them open and closed, and we've got some measurements to come as well, because, you know, why not? This seems to be a theme that I've developed whilst being here for the winter, although this is my last day in Portugal today. So tomorrow I fly back to Berlin to have the stitches out of my eye. So I thought I'd just squeak in another video that is a little bit left field. Yes, it's about curtains, and do they absorb sound as IKEA promise? Because if we go into the product details on the IKEA website, and again I've got that on my tablet here, it says the fabric absorbs sound which can reduce echo and reverberation. Reverberation, that's a key factor that we've talked about a lot in the last 6 weeks, right? The RT60, the reverb time in this room. Anyway, so echo and reverberation in medium and high frequency waves. We've talked about that a lot, haven't we? The reverb from 300 hertz to 4 kilohertz, the mid-range and the high frequencies. The combination of the chenille yarn and the special weave construction of the fabric makes the curtain sound absorbent. And the curtain has been verified according to ISO 354. Now, if we look up ISO 354, it doesn't mean that the curtains reach a standard of absorptive qualities, it means that they have been measured according to a certain standard. So ISO 354, I googled it, it's the measurement of sound absorption in a reverberation room. Now, an ISO standard is really just an internationally recognized way of doing something. So the ISO 354 standard is an internationally recognized way of measuring the sound absorptive properties of, in this particular case, a curtain. I'll just go back to the last paragraph of the description because it's important to me. It says the curtains lower the general light and provide privacy by preventing people outside from seeing directly into the room. Now this is great because I think the Gunnlaug for me is, I don't like net curtains. I just think they look really old-fashioned. But I like the principle that they let light through and you can see out, but they make it hard for people to see in. So for me, the Gunnlaug are a little bit like I guess a more advanced or a more modern, more modern take on a net curtain. Maybe I'll become a curtain twitcher. Uh-oh, we've got drilling. If you can hear drilling on this video, I'm really sorry. It's just there's about 3 streets away. Somebody's got a pneumatic drill. They were going at it yesterday afternoon and they've just started just now because it's just turned 8 a.m. Anyway, because this curtain is measured to an ISO standard and because IKEA promised some kind of sound absorption quotient from their curtain, it's probable that IKEA are not BSing us about really what they say about the Gunnlaug, about how it can absorb high frequencies and mid-range frequencies. But the big question here, as far as I'm concerned, is not whether it can, it's how much. To what degree does it absorb high frequencies and mid-range frequencies? Now, before we get into my findings, I thought we'd see what other people had to say about the Gunnlaug curtains. And I looked it up on IKEA's website in the customer review section. Here's the first one from a verified reviewer in the USA. And he or she writes, "We live a couple of blocks from a very active train and wanted to dampen the noise from it. I know how you feel because I got this drilling, but stick with me on this, right? While we can still hear the train, the sound is way less high-pitched. We love them. I would buy them for every room, but their one floor is not being long enough." Okay. "Ours are awkwardly between the floor and windowsill. Really hoping IKEA starts making them in longer sizes." Well, you can buy them up to 3 meters. I don't know. Maybe you've got a 5-meter room. I'm not sure. "But honestly, may put these in other bedrooms due to their practicality. Not to mention they're a good weight, still allow light in, yes, and look good." So I thought, okay, well maybe they're designed to block external noise. And yesterday, because we had this drilling going that you can probably hear still on the audio track of this video, I closed the curtains and asked myself, was the sound of the drilling diminished in any way? And the answer was a flat no. But let's look at another review from the IKEA website. This is from a verified reviewer in Australia. And the subject line is, "Looks okay, but can't feel the sound absorb at all." 3 stars. And he just writes, or she just writes, "Can't feel the sound absorb." I think it means the sound absorption. But anyway. And then if we move along to another review, this is also from Australia. People aren't happy in Australia, obviously, because the subject line here is just poor. And it's just a 1-sentence review that says, "Product does not reduce sound at all." So that's pretty damning from a sort of customer point of view, from verified reviewers. I guess you want to know what I think, right? So, I mean, I've lived with these in Berlin. I've used them occasionally, closed them, and I didn't really notice any difference. But yesterday, I played a bunch of Built to Spill, some Bob Dylan, some Oliver, and I was listening with the curtains open, then with the curtains closed, and with the curtains open, and the curtains closed. And I gotta say, I could not really hear much of a difference. And because of that, what I did is I got out my laptop and fired up Room EQ Wizard, and I put the microphone back at the listening position. I had to pull it all out of my suitcase because I was already packed. But I thought, no, I'm going to measure this. I want to see what this does to the sound from a measurement perspective to the Zoo Soul 6 in this room. So I did a before and after. I looked at frequency response. I looked at the RT60. And again, I've got those results on my graph. And again, I've got those results on my tablet right here. Now, the graph I'm showing you right now on the screen, you've got two lines. You've got a green one and a red one. And the red one is really the starting point where I started. With the curtains open, I measured the frequency response of the zoos in this room with the curtains open. And then I closed the curtains and I took a measurement response again. And you can see that in green. And I'm looking at this thinking, there's barely any difference to the frequency response at all. I mean, maybe a little bit, but nothing that I would call significant. But what about the RT60? That's a measurement of reverb time or reverberation time. And the 60 refers to 60 dB. So it's the amount of time it takes each frequency to decay in the room by 60 dB. And I wondered if the Gunnlaug would make an improvement, a further improvement to this room's reverb time, which is already very good because it was treated by acoustic. But obviously, if I'm covering up more exposed surfaces like the windows on either end of the room, I would expect there to be a change in the reverb time. And there is a little bit. I've got the graph on the screen right now, and you can see that closed is the green line, open is the red line. So we could say that at 100 Hertz, that having the curtains closed is a little bit better. But if we look at, say, 300 Hertz or 350 or 320, it's a little bit worse. And then at 400, it's better. At 800, it's better. And then at 1000, 1K, it's worse. And then if we get to 3K, it's ever so slightly better. And then maybe above 4K, the improvement is more consistent and perhaps more convincing, but no more than that. Now, just a reminder that these findings today, my listening impressions, which were negligible with these curtains, and the measurement results, which are, again show a very, very, very negligible improvement, and maybe only in the uppermost frequencies, these findings are specific to these curtains in this room. So if you're going to go, what about this other kind of curtain? I don't know, because this video is not about that other kind of curtain. But we have to ask ourselves, should we buy the IKEA Gunnlaug? Well, I think if you're buying them based upon their sound absorption promise, I would say you would have to really dial down your expectations. So maybe if you want to improve the very uppermost frequencies, say above 4K, so the top end of the treble really. But for mid-range, no, not really. But as we've seen from the RT60 graph, in some areas it's slightly worse, and in other areas it's slightly better. But there's nothing there that would convince me that says this curtain is doing something to the mid-range in terms of reverb. And in terms of frequency response, I won't say forget it. There are tiny, tiny differences. I mean, there is something there, but it's not a lot. So when I asked earlier how much are these curtains absorbing sound, I would say not very much at all. So I would say that really for most people, the only reason to buy them is if you like the look of them, if you like the material, and if you, as I do, like the fact that they let light shine through even when they are closed. Anyway, if you like this video, if you found it informative or entertaining or a bit of both, please consider giving us a like down below. If you like my attitude towards sound in a room, right? Because we've done a lot of that these last few weeks, and this is the last video in that particular series or this run of videos. But if you dig my attitude that the sound of the room is fundamental to what you hear from your loudspeakers in the room, then please consider giving, no, I've done it again, haven't I? Please consider subscribing to this channel. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching.